Good. I'm not going to get too far started because I want to get this on tape.
We're rolling.
Oh, are you rolling?
Yep.
Oh, okay. Do you mind if I walk around?
No, let's track you.
Okay.
Am I in your way?
Great.
No, as long as I'm not blocking anybody here.
Well,
Yeah, I'll be moving around anyway. So, my name's David Klann, and I founded and built WDRT in Viroqua, Wisconsin 6 years ago. Before that, we were streaming as RadioDriftless.org for 4 years, and I started the station out using this automation system called Rivendell, and for the streaming station I made my own automation system, which I don't really recommend doing because there's so many good options out there. But I have since started a little consulting and services business called Broadcast Tool and Die, and I help other stations, and I thought, well, what's the best way to do that? And I decided to kind of share what I know in a little presentation form. But just know that I'm also available if you want to talk individually at any point. So I'm going to go over the basics. If you're already using automation and reasonably content with it, this is going to be sort of way beneath you. But if you're looking around and thinking about automation systems as an option, this is where we're at. I'll throw this slide up again at the end, and I've got cards and all that stuff. So my full disclosure, I've already mentioned that I'm a fan of Rivendell. I've been working for it for 6 years now, more or less full time, and I've gotten to know it really well. I'm helping other stations with it. So that's my bias, but I approached this, putting this little workshop together with an open mind, and I want to see what else is out there, and I'm really curious, and I actually learned some interesting things about some of the other automation systems that are available. So that's my full disclosure. Little history lesson for you. Has anybody been around in the radio business long enough to see the original automation systems? Yeah, it started off with tapes. The first radio station that I worked at full time had just converted to a live format, and we had these racks of equipment sitting in the hallway, unplugged and powered down, and every time I walked by it, I was just amazed that that could actually work. And you know, apparently they usually worked, but not always, and not always that reliably, and required tons of maintenance. These two round things up here are tape carousels, and I worked, my actual first paying radio job was at WUWM in Milwaukee, non-commercial, NPR affiliate, and the chief engineer was so proud of that thing. He could actually do overnight programming with that thing, and I babysat it like from 10 p.m. till 2 a.m. And then when I left, it ran by itself for 4 hours, usually. So that's where automation started back in the mid to late 70s, 80s, and even into the 90s. Apparently this photograph is from a station that used this automation system into the early 90s, which is kind of shocking to me. But let's define the term automation. And I'm being a little bit pedantic here and overly simplistic, but it's really just computer programs that you set up to have some kind of an effect on the audio, the textual content, and maybe even some of the video content that you're providing to your audience. Does that make sense? Then, now that you've got sort of a common vision of what automation is, as you're going through and deciding to choose an automation system, you have to decide what's important to you. What are you going to try to automate? Are you going to have a fully automated system where maybe you'll do voice tracking and you won't actually have an announcer in the studio? Probably not for a lot of community stations, because that's sort of against the whole vision and the whole purpose of local community radio. Are you going to do partially automated? Some day parts, like overnights when you can't get volunteers to come in, or the middle of the day when volunteers have day jobs. Are you going to do live assist, where you have your music library in a digital form and you have somebody sitting in the studio and they're pushing buttons? Or do you want to do something like a cart player where they're just, does everybody know what cart player, the term cart player? Raise your hand if you're, don't be shy, yeah. I know. A cart is short for cartridge. Do you remember 8-track tapes? Do you remember tape? Yeah. Good, that's a good starting point. There was a company called Fidelipac that back in the, I don't know, 50s, 60s, came out with these endless loop cartridges, and they were plastic boxes that contained a loop, and it never ended. And you controlled it by putting inaudible tones on it. And so when the reader, when the playback machine encountered these inaudible tones, it could hear them, it would say, oh, I gotta stop, that's the end of that track. And it would automatically queue up to the next track on the cart. And so you could put 4 or 5 or a dozen, depending on, you could actually make your own cart and put however much tape in it that you wanted to. But the key was that you could put more than one thing on it, and it was always queued up to the next thing on it. So if you hear the term cart in the radio business, it refers to
a shelf full of them.
Yeah, right.
So you can pull them out and pop them in.
Yeah, exactly.
It would automatically rotate them.
Right.
Easier to change than a CD.
Yeah, much easier to change.
4 or 5 cart machines all sitting there in a row, and you just pop your spots in a row if you
Yeah,
want.
exactly. And that carousel that I was showing you, that was full of tape cartridges. So a lot of these automation systems still use that legacy terminology. They have a cart. And that's what we mean when I say just a cart player. Something that it's no longer a physical medium, it's a button on a terminal where you hit it and it goes. And of course there's the ever important but often overlooked aspect of automation, and that is as an emergency backup, so that if you either lose power in your studio or it gets wiped out by a flood or an earthquake or a tornado or a hurricane, if you can actually put an automation system in a different physical location, like maybe right next to your transmitter, which it might be in a different physical location than your studio. So these are some options for what automation systems can do, and this is obviously a broad overview. Can anybody think of other uses for automation? Yeah, okay. I wanted to make sure we covered at least these 5, but a hand? Oh, okay.
There's events in the station, other events that might need controlling. With modern automation, you can not just be doing audio, but there may be other things that need to happen at certain times.
Yeah, yeah.
You know.
Yeah, when I talk about my, oh boy, we've got to go one at a time. When we talk about computer programs working together to affect the audio, it's not just playing stuff. It's Bob, right?
Yeah.
As he pointed out, a modern automation system can actually control physical devices. So you can switch from one source to another, or you can do lots of different things.
Stream control.
Stream control, sure. Satellite control, if any of you are lucky enough to have satellite systems. So automation is more than just playing tracks. So let's talk about these, and let's add to that list. And one of the things I'd like to do is sort of add some attributes of automation systems. And these are general computer things or general application things, when you think about deploying a new application or buying an application, what do you want it to be able to do in very broad terms? So you want it to be extensible. You want your automation system to start out simple, but to be able to grow with you as you learn how to use it, right? So at first you might just want to load up the library and put together a playlist by hand, and when you're ready to go on the air, hit start and just have it go top to bottom. Well, later you may want to be able to have it switch, or you may want to be able to insert underwriting announcements or station promotional announcements, or you may want to take a news feed from one of the syndicated news organizations and integrate that into the system. So you want it to be able to grow with you, and you may want it to be able to do more things. So being extensible to me is a crucial aspect of it. You want it to be flexible. In the same way, you want to be able to build a show and be able to replace the entire contents at a moment's notice. Or a more common scenario, if you have a live show planned and the host forgets to show up, you want to be able to build a show quickly and be able to do lots of different things with it. It's got to be relatively easy to use. Now, an automation system is a complex computer application, but you want it to be easy to use. And there are several classes of users with automation systems. There's the person who's on the air that might be using it interactively, or at WDRT, we automate our overnights. And so the last person doing a live show, when they're done at 11 o'clock in the evening or midnight, they got to know how to start the automation system. So you want that to be easy. But you also want it to be easy for the people that are setting the shows up, that are programming the material. So it needs to be easy to use. It needs to be as intuitive as possible, because how many people are paid staff for their station? Yeah, we've got one. I saw two, maybe three. We're all volunteers for the most part, including me, for my station, WDRT, and it's got to be easy to use. Interoperability with the host. This is a key one to me. It's not immediately obvious, I think, when you're evaluating systems, but you want it to be able to be interoperable. Whether you're running Windows, Mac OS, or Linux, you want to be able to interact with the host operating system. In other words, if I've got some aspect that I want to extend in some way, I'm being really vague and geeky computery about this, but if I want to run a scheduled job, for example, I want to be able to have the operating system schedule that job and have the automation system obey those commands. Or I want to be able to call an operating system task from within the automation system. So maybe I want to clean up a directory of files or something like that. And I want to automate that. And I should be able to do that from within the automation system. And along the interoperability aspect, I wanted to interoperate with other apps. There's a great DJ app called Mix, M-I-X-X-X. Runs on all the various kinds of computers, and it's got it takes the form, or it looks like a DJ console, like a live club DJ thing. If some of my DJs want to use that, I want to make the tracks available from my library available to them to do that. So working with other apps is a key one in my view. If I have a playlist, or if I've got a library already in iTunes or something like that, how do I get that out of iTunes and into my library, in my automation system? So these are high-level, broad aspects of automation systems that I would recommend evaluating and asking about when you're doing that evaluation. And I guess as a last set of evaluation criteria, I've got a list of things that are useful to shoot for when you're deciding what to evaluate on. And so I'm going to show a more comprehensive list, but I'm going to start with these guys here. It should be able to do whatever I want to do now, and I should be able to grow with it. And do more when we need it. It should work with all the systems we had. I'm just sort of repeating myself here. So one of the learning techniques I know people sometimes do well with is repetition. So that's what I'm doing here. Should be easy enough for the staff and volunteers to use. It should produce reports that we need. How do you know what your automation system is doing unless somebody is sitting there writing down everything it's doing all along the way? Well, your automation system should be able to keep track of what it's doing. So it should be at least a little bit self-aware. So, how do we take these high-level ideas and put them to work? What I'm going to show you here is a two-dimensional comparison. And for me, the two dimensions are list of features in this down the left-hand side and a list of products that are available across the top. So it'd be kind of cool to make a three-dimensional one, and you probably could, but it doesn't do very well on the screen. So I'm just going to stick with 2 dimensions. And I have prepared a Google spreadsheet with all these details. And don't worry about writing this down. I've got this presentation up on the GRC 2016 website, and you can just download the presentation and click on the link. I've also got a QR code here if you've got a reader on your phone. Oh boy, there's the eye chart. So could somebody please read column L32 for me? Yeah. What I'm going to do here is just start talking about these, but as you can see, I've got in blue the names of a dozen or so automation packages, and the bold column here on the left is the some of the features that we have that I think are important and things that I should be able to compare different automation systems with. Can you zoom in on that, Bob?
Yeah, I'm zooming in.
It's actually...
It's question.
Yeah.
Okay, Steve, do you have label recording as one of the features?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, so that brings up a great question. What are the capabilities that you think an automation system should be able to do? What are your needs? This is where I want to turn this into a group discussion. This session was originally discussed as being a roundtable, and I really would love to make it a discussion where people talk about, you know, if you're already using automation, what do you like about it? What don't you like about it? And what are the features that you're looking for in an automation system? So. Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, is that a rhetorical question?
No, it's not. I really want to make this an interactive discussion.
I'm looking for remote access, like ease of remote access for all my DJs so they don't have to go to the studio.
Okay. How do you, have you thought about how you envision that working? Like,
yeah, so a lot of the programming is going to be involved with music, and so they're going to be able to remotely interact with the automation software to line up the music they want to play. Okay, got it. Do they want to record their voices to do intros and stuff like that? Yeah. Okay. First question is, did everybody hear that? Yeah. And does that make sense? Is that something that others are interested in doing? I see a couple of hands that seems like an interesting possibility for sure.
So one thing to say that I'm actually remote logged into my computer now.
Cool. That's awesome.
But so I can see everything. I just actually changed the playlist for today. I can't record it. I usually work with Leganzi on stuff like that, but I can't record like a voiceover.
Yeah, I assume the voiceover work, whatever other stuff they'd be doing would be done in a more proper studio location. But for a lot of the music,
Yeah, that's a lot easier.
Stuff that's
a lot easier.
Force everybody to have to go to a location.
So what's your hookup? How you doing it?
So we use Teamviewer.
Teamviewer?
Yeah, Teamviewer.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So I just went into the Teamviewer and I'm actually in the studio computer now, looking to make sure everything's working, and I just changed today's playlist completely.
And what are you using for the playlist?
We use Station Playlist.
Okay.
The Station Playlist has a remote voice track feature. Reggie, when we get back to the room, I'll show you how to set it up. We just haven't got it set up. But
Sure. And how long have you been using the Station Playlist?
We've used it since our launch, KLEK, January 1st of 2016.
Okay, so you've been using it for a few months. And
2015.
is it
2015, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay, so more than a year, almost 2 years. Is it working for you?
Yep, I hardly have any problems with it at all. Of course, had a little recent issue that it was caused more by Windows 10 deciding to do the anniversary update as opposed to the software itself. But for the most part, I've been pretty happy with it.
I actually have Station Playlist on my computer, and my computer runs Linux. But Station Playlist is a Windows app. And I noticed when I was doing my research for this that Station Playlist supports Windows, and they give you what versions of Windows they support. And in parentheses, they said it also runs under the Wine emulation system on both Windows and Mac. And I thought, oh, I'll try it. And I loaded it up. The website has a demo playlist that you can download that just runs it through its paces, and it worked just fine. I was kind of surprised, pleasantly surprised.
And let's just clarify TeamViewer 2 as a remote program and what options you have on that. TeamViewer is free.
Yeah.
It's not as transparent as, say, VNC,
right,
which works on all platforms.
Yep.
You know, everybody probably knows VNC. That's what we use. The TeamViewer, I control my mom's computer with it. It's free, but every time you reboot the machine on the other end, the password changes.
Right.
So the way to...
Well, I mean, you cut you off, but there's
do
a
it.
way around that.
Yeah, there's a way around it. Yeah, I was going to go there, but go ahead.
Yeah, so...
That's all right. Yeah, I was just going to say what you were going to say.
Basically, with TeamViewer, what you have to do is you set up an account, and if I had a computer in front of me, I could actually see the actual steps. But basically, what it involves is when you download that software onto the computer, you set it up to where it says access this computer for remote use, and you create a password specific to that machine, and then you assign it to your account. So when you log into your account on TeamViewer, it'll show a list of the computers that you can control, and all you have to do is just click on that computer, and then it pull it up. You won't have to put the password.
Yeah, you'll always
each
get in.
time.
So you just create an account with TeamViewer.
Or you can just log into Windows. You can sign into the TeamViewer account, or you can just log into that exact Windows machine through TeamViewer, so long as it's been set up on both machines.
So that works good.
So-
works good.
So this is a great point. Station Playlist actually has some remote modules, but here's an example of some folks that are using Station Playlist, but they're not using the remote capability to its fullest extent, but they're getting around that by using a different app to do the remote access. So in general, yeah, you can do remote access with just about any automation system. TeamViewer is available for all the major platforms, so that's one way to get around it. Yeah.
Didn't mean to go down Trump on you and interrupt, but
No, that's all right.
It may be a winning strategy. Who
I
knows?
think that's how Donald Trump interrupts.
But piggybacking off of that, what you can do, like you can use if you have Adobe Audition, or if you have Audacity, you could record your voice tracks on your computer. Because with Teamviewer, you can drag and drop files from the computer that you're on to the remote computer. So if you didn't want to mess with trying to use the remote track module on station playlist, or if another automation system has something different, you could record your voice track files locally, then drag them and drop them onto your on-air screen, and then insert them into your playlist, however method that your automation system uses for dragging and dropping files in. So that's another way in which you can do it.
It's like we're having like a real life session. So I just got a call from one of my personalities who's trying to drag and drop an announcement into today's playlist. So
they're somewhere remote, not in the studio?
Yeah, he's in Houston, Texas right now, which was why he called, because he was moving the mouse while I was doing it.
Right, that's a weird
and
feeling.
That's another thing. Teamviewer can have multiple sessions at once because although our stations are separate, Reggie and I, we work together, and so sometimes if he has an issue, he'll call me, and he may be on a business conference somewhere because he has a full-time job. Must be nice. And so we will both log into Teamviewer into his studio computer. He'll be wherever he is at. I'll be in my studio, and I say, okay, Reggie, this is what you need to do. And so multiple people can be on a session at the same time. And Teamviewer now, actually, for those who may be skittish about security, has a new feature now. Whenever you sign into a computer for the first time on Teamviewer, it will email the owner of that account, and you actually have to click a link to grant access to that. So if you've never logged into that computer before. Because I remember I had one of my volunteers that needed to make a change, and I gave them the password. I said, well, just log into the Teamviewer. You already know what to do. Drop the file in. He said, it's not letting me. It's saying that it sent the link saying that you got to approve it. So I went, my phone went to the email. I said, okay, I approved you. You can get on now.
Can it text you?
Yeah, you can open up a text chat right in the window.
Yeah, it does have that feature where you can
emailing
and text. And it is fast enough. It ain't super fast, but it's fast enough. All right, guys?
How many of you are at your station have sort of a Mac environment? Couple? How about Windows? A bunch. Linux? Awesome, awesome, thank you. So one of the important things is that things about choosing an automation system. Again, choosing any complex or powerful application, it's important first to understand what your needs are. And when I say your needs, I'm talking about not just you, the people that are going to be the main maintainers, but the people that are using it on a day-to-day basis. What are they most comfortable with in a computer interface? If it's Macs, you should probably choose an automation system that runs on Mac. I see you're Reggie.
Yes.
I see you're working on a Mac, but you're using Station Playlist, which is a Windows app, right?
Right.
So you've got some interoperability capabilities there via Teamviewer, so that's pretty cool.
Exactly. So I mean, it basically, when I logged in, I was accessing the actual computer in the studio.
Yeah, right.
It just changed my entire computer to access for that.
Yep. Yeah. But in order to use, install and maintain Station Playlist, you've got to know a little bit about Windows because that's what it runs on at its base, even though you're a Mac user. So you need to have familiarity with whatever the app is running on. By and large, from the research I've done, by and large, most of these apps are Windows-based apps. I can point out the one that I know that works on Mac natively, and that's Megaseg. And it's a reasonably decent automation system. When I look at the field of automation systems, I sort of classify them into basic, intermediate, and full-on advanced automation. And when I look at basic, I'm talking about iTunes or Winamp or just the basic playlist things, right? You load up a playlist and you hit start and it goes. And you don't really have any timing capabilities. You can't say, make sure, well, you can't tell the automation system to say, make sure to get a legal ID at the top of the hour or near the top of the hour. You've got to plan for that in your playlist. You've got to make that happen. So that's the basic level. Just load up a playlist and spew it out and hope for the best. The intermediate level, which is where the vast majority of these free and low-cost automation systems are, there's some ability to tell the computers to say, hey, I've got this library of music. I've got 20,000 tracks loaded up, and I want you to choose them. Let's say you want to do an hour of blues. You can tell the automation system to choose an hour of blues. Or you know, you want to do an hour of just randomly selected stuff, or pseudo-randomly. I mean, one of the things that the automation system to do, and at this basic, or I'm sorry, this intermediate tier, most of these apps are capable of doing this. I want to choose a random set of tunes, but I don't want to choose one that I just played yesterday, or I don't want to put two metal songs next to each other. An intermediate level automation system, and I'm talking station playlist, megaseg, radio DJ. I've got to look at my list up here. I should have done a better job of. Is there a focus on this thing?
Yeah, it's on the far side near the front.
This far side or this far
That's the far side. Yeah, near the front. It's good luck.
Got it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's as good as it can be. So the intermediate tier, the ones that we've been talking about, are capable of selecting tracks based on some simple rules that you input. And in general, it's pretty easy to set up those rules. The top tier, what I call full-on automation systems, are the ones where you're actually going to spend some serious change. I mean, there's one, RCS Suite, Encode DAD. These are like commercial radio automation systems where they'll charge you $15,000 and up just for the software. Sometimes they come with their own hardware, sometimes it's just the software. Those are the things that you're able to do, you know, start specifically, and I know some of the intermediate tiers can do this as well, but you know, make this a hard start. So at the top of the hour, to the second or to the millisecond, I want to hear a legal ID, and you know, I want you to gracefully transition out of the last thing that was playing in the previous hour. So, for example, some of these full-on automation systems are able to stretch the song to last a little longer, or to play it a little bit faster but not change the pitch so that it ends right at the right time. These are some of the features of the full-on advanced automation systems that I'm talking about. And those are, you know, that's just a small example of that. My experience with stations I've worked with, and at my station, WDRT, you don't need that kind of accuracy. The rule for a legal ID, for example, it doesn't have to be at the top of the hour. The FCC's rule says that it needs to be as close to the top of the hour as convenient, provided by the program content. So at a natural break. So in general, you know, whatever's playing, let it finish and then do the legal ID. What if you want to do the legal ID a couple seconds before the top of the hour? Then you're talking about a little bit more complex arrangement. You know, you need a little bit more power in your automation system to be able to have that flexibility and have it automatically do that. How about, go ahead.
I'm just going to say that when you add flexibility, you're also adding complexity.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. So, you know, that's a consideration.
Yeah, absolutely.
How deep do we want to go given the volunteer
Right.
Pretty much volunteer environment.
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, the ideal package is easy to get to operate simply and then has tons of layers below.
Right. Yep.
And you queue up those spots, generally they're called events, you know, and
Yep.
you pop a couple events like 3 minutes before the hour, and then it'll just slide it in there, plus or minus, wherever that ID can be popped in. All of a sudden the playlist, and bloop, those pop in, a couple of spots in your ID pop in, and it just plays. And the DJs are like, what the hell, you know, but it's automated. You know,
Yeah.
So you can do that during live DJ stuff too, for guys that, you know, you tell them what to do, but they're not going to do it.
Right, right.
So,
Well, that also affects how you have it hooked up to the board, whether it's coming in on a pot, or whether the board is going through the automation.
Yeah, that's a good point. I
That's a big choice.
didn't put that on my list of, well, it's kind of beyond the scope
That's why
of
it's here.
a survey of automation systems, but it's a great point. Where do you put the automation system in your audio chain? At WDRT, we have our player app connected to a pot on the board. So it's on a fader. You got to turn it on and make sure that it's enabled. I'm working with KMUD in Garberville, California. They don't have, there's nobody here from there, so I can say, oh, I want
Is it
to.
Simon?
I don't think he is, no. They have their automation system completely disassociated with the studios. It's the automation system is in a back room, nobody sees it, nobody touches it, and it can interrupt the program stuff. So there could be somebody sitting in the studio doing a show and not realize that they're on the air. They don't do that, but you could. So that's another question you got to ask. And in general, these intermediate and basic layer automation systems, they want to be connected to a fader on your board. So, Reggie, I assume you've got is it a laptop or a server class rack mounted machine that you've got, and you've got the sound card hooked up to your board? Is that true?
Okay, I'll answer that.
Oh, okay.
Since I said,
Oh, okay.
it's basically it's a Dell Optiplex. You could call it business class computer. It's not a server or a rack mount, but it's both of our stations basically have a dual card sound card set up. I put in the sound card.
Yep.
One runs is the actual automation software. One is what we call the audition sound card. So if we need to audition a card, that audition sound card will feed into a pot on the board marked audition. We can listen to a song if we need to make sure it's appropriate or whatever, and then we can switch it over, and then, like I said, we have the main pot, which is connected to the main sound card. Works great unless Windows 10 decides to wipe out all the settings. And, but that's another story, again, beyond survey of automation.
And that's probably the diciest thing to get up audition set on your automation.
Yeah. So what we're talking about here, for those of you who don't have an automation system so far, you know, at your station, or many stations that I've been to, you have sort of an audition channel on your board, so that when you're queuing up a record or a compact disc, or you know, if somebody brings in their own material on their laptop or iPod or something like that, you have a queue channel where you can listen to it, or an audition channel. You need to have that same capability in your automation system. So it needs to know about multiple channels of output. Ideally, it knows about multiple channels of input as well, so that it can capture audio from multiple places. So you need to have an automation system that supports multiple sound cards and multiple channels on those sound cards. So down at the basic level, things like iTunes and Winamp, you don't get that kind of flexibility. It's like whatever goes out, goes out. In the intermediate tier, station playlist, radio DJ, ZARA, Megaseg, I'm forgetting. Oh, and I'll put the. Wait a minute, Reggie, you've got internet access. Is it Wi-Fi or are you using cell data? Hotspot. Okay. I would bring this spreadsheet up, but I don't have a hotspot available.
Yeah, we couldn't pull it off.
Yeah. Maybe, yeah. Well, I don't want to interrupt. We'll do this. I have a QR code. If anybody's got a phone scanner, you can pull up this. That's the URL for the spreadsheet that I've got. It's in Google Docs. And I made it available to anybody with the link, and anybody can comment on it, but I didn't give everybody edit access. But I'm happy to do that if people want to collaborate and start using this as a point to compare notes about automation systems. Where was it? Capabilities and the different tiers. We have, and the ability to audition. Our studio computers have, so one of the things you have to think about when you build your automation computer is what sound card are you going to put into it. And you probably, kind of like putting memory in a computer, you want to put in as much as you can afford. And if your source of computers is getting them from the hospital when they cycle through and buy a new set of computers, and you get all of their old ones, or one or two of their old ones, you might not have the resources to buy a $5,000 audio card, which literally those exist. We were fortunate enough to get a grant for our initial station build out, and our studio players for our automation system have 4 channels of input and 4 channels of output, and so we can hook up those output channels to different channels on our board, and so you can do that audition capability. You need to make sure that you've got support for enough audio cards. So in general, doing your automation system on a laptop is probably not the best idea, because except for USB audio devices, you can't add in additional audio devices in a laptop, right? And since I've taken that little diversion, let's talk about USB devices. One of the things that I see repeatedly on the mailing lists and the forums is people asking how they can make sure that the USB audio device doesn't just disappear on them. And the bottom line is it's really hard to do that. You've got to sort of babysit the computer and make sure that, that if you've got a USB audio device, that it's visible to the computer, so that if your automation system is running and all of a sudden somebody pulls the rug out from under it, you're dead. So having a stable audio device, which means getting a PCI card or a PCI Express card that you stick, plug into the motherboard. Yep.
Another thing we have to also look at, this is something I just recently ran into, because we also do live streaming from our studio. If you have too many USB devices plugged in, you start getting errors saying that you don't have enough USB bandwidth, because I actually had to build a computer just to run my live stream, and I had to put a USB 3.0 PCI card in just so that I could plug 2 webcams in to actually feed the live stream from the studio.
Yeah, that's a great point. USB is not a real-time communications channel, and so and it's not all, especially USB 2.0, and most of these USB audio cards are USB 3 capable. A lot of them are just USB 1 capable. So you've got to pay attention to that. My advice for production automation is stay away from USB audio if you can.
Is FireWire any better?
FireWire is better, yes. It's higher bandwidth, and it has closer to real-time capabilities. Yeah, so that's a good question. We got until 10:30, if I understand.
Yeah.
So make sure that you pay attention to the hardware, the audio devices, and make sure that, in my experience, the vast majority of these automation systems will support whatever sound card device you have, whether it's USB or hardware.
I just wanted to be sure to mention too, ZARA Radio is like the bottom level free, fun automation app that you can just download immediately and play with and just sort of get your feet wet and just go, well, heck, we could actually probably just use this.
Yeah.
Or maybe not.
The one thing I would caution you, if you're going to do your homework, people have found that ZARA specifically doesn't support reporting requirements for internet streaming. And specifically, as Otis brought up, yeah, you're right.
Because iTunes doesn't.
Yeah.
iTunes does not have a place for the label.
So the issue here is reporting for sound exchange. Who's never heard of sound exchange? Only a couple people. If you're streaming on the internet, sound exchange is the
Streaming music.
Yes, thanks for pointing that out. If you're streaming music on the internet, you have to pay royalties to the artists and performers of the music. And Sound Exchange is the entity that funnels those from players, people who play stuff in public, to the artists and copyright holders. One of the current requirements for Sound Exchange is reporting the label on every track that you play during your reporting period.
Artist, album, label, and
Yep.
song, the four elements that need to be reported.
Thank you. Yeah.
We're going to fight to get rid of label.
Yeah.
But right now we have to
All of the popular music formats, MP3, FLAC, OGG Vorbis, AAC. Actually, I'm not even sure about AAC. They have support for, they have a tag that supports the label, but hardly anybody puts the label in tracks. iTunes, Apple doesn't, Amazon doesn't. MusicBrainz doesn't by default, but they can.
I had an interchange with MusicBrainz because what we were trying to do is figure out how you could deduce the label from the artist and the album.
Sure.
You know, the label name might change, but the copyright holder is going to stay the same.
Right.
You know, and so that's what you're really reporting. The label is the copyright holder, which is the RIAA entity that's stealing money from everybody. But so I had this exchange with MusicBrainz, and they got upset that I was asking about the label because they thought I was the man trying to take over this organization, all of which information comes from users. Right. People are putting all of the information into MusicBrainz, as volunteers, and mostly it's information about the artist, about that particular thing. So we couldn't find a way to pull the label from what exists now. But Sound Exchange could. Sure. They have the information in their database, and they could actually pull it off if we could persuade them.
Yeah. So the issue is, for reporting requirements, where are you getting your music? Where are you getting the metadata, the textual data that accompanies that content? So metadata, as Otis mentioned, is artist, track name, album name, the label name, year released.
No, you don't need the year.
No, I'm not saying. I'm just giving examples of metadata. Yeah, MusicBrainz is an online database that allows people to upload this metadata and associate it with tracks. There are commercial metadata services. One of them, probably the best known, is called GraceNote. There's another one called FreeDB.
Well, that's FreeDB and MusicBrainz are connected now.
Oh, they are? I didn't know that.
Well, no, when you rip a CD, or when you put a CD in your computer, Winamp or whoever,
yeah,
will go up to either FreeDB or GraceNote, but they use the number I can't remember the acronym.
Yeah, the CD ID.
It's the ID number, the international number, which is almost always unique. And then they will pull down the tracks for you, and you'll see the track names show up. MusicBrainz can do that.
Bringing this back to automation, ZARA specifically doesn't look for and has no reporting capabilities for the music label. So I mentioned that to you a couple weeks ago, but I've since gone back and looked closer, and I can't find any evidence of it. So
They're Germans, they look there.
yeah.
They don't have to report that stuff.
Yeah, it's curious.
It's really strange. You would think
Yeah.
it's a huge market here.
There may be others. I haven't done enough research to know specifically that one of the hardest things to get out of these entities, these publishers of automation programs, is the reporting capabilities of their software. I think Station Playlist is one that will output a comma-separated values file, CSV file, and you can suck it into Excel or LibreOffice and do whatever you want with it.
It'll also send a message.
Yeah. Some of the upper tier apps like Rivendell and Encode DAD, they've got the ability to not only do reporting, in other words, they keep track of stuff while the playing is going out. And then they save all those details in a database, and you can either on demand or in an automated fashion generate reports for all kinds of different entities. And you can do any of that stuff. These top tier automation programs also have the ability to output arbitrary data to arbitrary places. So, for example, in Rivendell, they have this plugin system, and you can write plugins that will take the now playing data, is what they call it, and the now playing data includes all the stuff that you want to see on your website for what's currently playing, or if you have a radio data systems transmitter and you want to put it out over the FM broadcast, you can actually feed that from the automation system. And I think I know what you're going to say, but go ahead.
And Station Playlist has one you can have with Twitter.
Yeah.
If you have Twitter followers that want to see every single song that you play, listen to each song as a tweet.
Really?
So, in my view, the middle tier, where Station Playlist and Radio DJ and ZARA and some of these others, they've got those available. The upper tier have the capability, well, not only the ability to do that, there's a Twitter module for Rivendell, but there's also a Facebook module. They also give you a way to write your own custom module. So if you want to integrate your automation system with your website, for example, and you have a custom-made website, and it's not WordPress, or it's not one of the standard off-the-shelf websites. The upper tier automation systems give you the ability to write your own integration capability so that you can output whatever kind of data you want, and it will feed your website or your stream or your RDS signal. So these are the kinds of things that you want to pay attention to. It's like, what's the end game? And if I had to walk away from this radio station for 2 weeks, could it run itself? If Hurricane Matthew wiped out the whole east coast of Florida, just hypothetically speaking, and all my volunteers were spending time helping people rebuild their homes and things like that, how would I keep my station going? Obviously in that kind of crisis, you're going to want as much hands-on and live reporting as possible, but you might also just want some music, or you might want to be able to drop in pre-recorded announcements about what services are available. Could you do that and not be anywhere physically near the computer? Using maybe something like Teamviewer, or maybe not. Just let it go by itself. Yes, sir.
One of the things that we use at our news station, and we're all volunteers and we're all not experienced radio people, but we're using Rivendell as our automation system and like it well. but one of the problems we have with it is the lack of good documentation. There's, you already mentioned the trade-off, flexibility and ease of use, complexity. They sort of go together. If you have, and sometimes the details are hard to come by.
Yes.
Do you have any sense of support and?
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. And full disclosure, I worked with Jim and KPSQ on Rivendell, and they're my poster child for volunteer station working with Rivendell. Again, Rivendell is one of the more complex apps and not very well documented. But I think these guys are doing a great job. So if you get a chance to talk to Jim specifically, bend his ear about it.
Well, let me just interject on that. I really would like to meet any other stations who are using Rivendell because I can't help but think that there's some peer-to-peer help that we could have if we could sort of connect.
Let me just finish this thought on what I've got available on this spreadsheet, and then we'll get to you. So I have a training options line, and I've got a support options line. And the thing I don't have is sort of my opinion of how good those are. I don't have a lot of experience with some of these others, but some of them, if you just look at the comments or talk to people that are using them, this is a great place to do that. If you talk to the people that are using it, they'll tell you how good the support and training is. Jim's right. Rivendell is mostly supported by volunteers, and so the support and training materials are as good as they are at your radio stations for just general issues. Some of the commercial tools, Station Playlist is one, Megaseg is another one that I know that the folks that write it are pretty responsive when you ask a question. If you ask to add a feature, that's a different issue, but my understanding is that Station Playlist and there's a couple others that are in that list where the support is really good. The documentation is also key. And I know Station Playlist has good built-in documentation.
Well, I was going to say, yeah, you're right about that. Ross is pretty good. Station Playlist, but maybe a suggestion is that maybe take a count of who's using what, and you know, like for if anyone else is using Station Playlist, I'm happy to help. You know, use a Teamviewer. I've helped Reggie. I've helped a couple others with it. And like people who maybe use Rivendell, they could get together and you know we just help each other.
Yeah.
For people who may have mastered the software, help those who are struggling with it, no matter what the automation system is.
Yeah, my question was similar to that. Is like, who's using what and do you like it? For the people that are up and running.
Yeah, so let's do that. Who's using automation now? And just shout out, let's just kind of go from south to north and just shout out what you're using and if you like it.
Using airtime, Live Source Fabric, it's okay, but I don't use it for our main channel, I use it for our HD channel. It's essentially just running music and syndicated programs in the background, and we have a relay switch which will allow the live studio to take over and broadcast. And that's primarily just so that we didn't have a lot of people to fill that spot. So we filled it with music and good programs. We want live people, live programs.
And name your station as you go.
Yeah.
KPFT in Houston, sorry.
Anybody else?
We use airtime, but we're not real happy with it. We can't get the podcast feature to work where it automatically will upload shows every day. In particular, from audio port, we can't get it to work.
Wait, when you say podcast, you're talking about retrieving them?
Retrieving these audio files
okay.
on a regular basis.
Got it.
Did we go through that?
Yeah.
With airtime?
I use just another program to download them and then upload them, so I don't use...
Because it is
I just
problematic.
use
Because it's
airtime
doable.
It's a
Oh, it sounds like we can put a couple
Yeah.
together here.
Yeah.
Great.
I didn't realize that was going on.
Other automation systems? Yeah.
Playlist for both broadcast and internet streaming. For both broadcast and internet streaming. We've been using Station Playlist since we signed on as a Part 15 station about 5 years ago, and kept it up as low power FM for almost 2 years, and really, really happy with it.
And is your FM broadcast and stream the same content?
Yes, it's the same.
Got it.
Yeah.
Others?
God help me if it was something.
I know there's a MegaSeg user over here.
Yeah, that's us. We're WXOX LP Louisville, and we started using MegaSeg just as a way of, when there's not a live DJ in the studio, to run the automated playlists and to do the station IDs. So we're not using it to its full capacity, and so I don't know that much about it, but that's what we're using. And it works okay. You know, it looks like it has a lot more capability than what we're using it for, and I'd like to understand it more. If anyone knew more about it, I'd love to talk to you.
Yeah, KUHS, the local sponsor station.
Hi there. And yeah, we're using MegaSeg, and I don't run it primarily, but it's fairly easy to use on the surface level, but there are a tremendous amount of levels under that you can get into. Zach, our GM, does that. We had initial problems with iTunes songs coming up with, you know, it wasn't authorized or some kind would lock the system up for a while. That seems to have cleared up. I don't know how, but there's definitely some holes you can fall in with MegaSeg. But overall, it's been very good for us because now we're way down the advanced thing, and it's been doing all kind of stuff.
Great. Others?
Yeah, so KHY, Story City Ames, we're using ZARA, and we're fairly content with it. We're able to both broadcast and simultaneously live stream with that system. Plus, it's fairly easy to transition from the automation to live in studio broadcast. It's fairly simple to use as well, so it's pretty nice.
Could people mention the prices of these different systems?
Oh, a couple $100.
Yeah, MegaSeg is less than 200. Station Playlist, you can download it for...
How deep you want to get? So you could think for like $400, get the basics. So
You get both
or you
modules.
go all the way to $750 if you get all the bells and whistles.
Yeah.
You get both modules, because you're getting the creator as well as the...
Yeah, I've got prices for these.
It's about $500.
Spreadsheet.
Creator plus. But if you can afford it, it's better to go ahead and get complete package all the bells and
Sure.
whistles. I wasn't that fortunate. I had to kind of buy, you know, like you said, you have to start with Studio and Creator, and then I added the voice track module and all the other stuff as I could afford to go on.
And Studio Playlist is supposed to be very sophisticated about building a playlist. There are a lot of you know, categorizations and so forth, so that it can pretty much do what you want.
Is that a module of?
No, it's part of the. It's actually part of the playlist.
My understanding is Station Playlist has a studio and a creator.
Yeah, and they're separate.
Yeah,
separate
but
computers.
yeah, and that's like the
But
base
the
entry
creators-
price is $500 or whatever.
There's a level. Reggie would know better than I because he's used it.
Yeah, yeah.
There are levels of categorization for music, so that it will do exactly what you were saying.
Yeah.
Repeat of previous playlists, and you know what things that shouldn't be butted against.
Right, right.
So it's pretty sophisticated. It's good. I like it.
We want to run our station playlist at a PC at our transmitter site, so we don't have to go. We don't have an STL. We don't want to use the internet. It's problematic. So do some of these have a web interface rather than having to use remote desktop or VNC, which are very bandwidth intensive?
Yes, I didn't include that as a category, but as I was doing research, I noticed that some of the tools, and there's the blue row is a link to the manufacturer's website with documentation. I know that some of them, like a couple of them, have a web interface. You know, you get into the upper tier and they've got phone apps for these things. You can control the entire thing from your phone. That's That's a little bit more unusual feature, but a few of the lower mid-tier ones have web interfaces as well.
You still have to get to it, okay? So if you're talking about web interface, I mean, you still have to get to the device through TCP, through an internet connection.
Yeah.
So web or not, you got to get up to the top of the hill somehow.
But I do know is like remote desktop, it's constantly redrawing the whole windows.
Oh yeah,
and it actually
Teamviewer is actually pretty bandwidth stingy in that regard.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a more elegant way to do it though.
Yeah.
That is with Wi-Fi, high-power Wi-Fi dishes. And that is if you have any sort of line of sight between your control point, is to put a couple of, well, I'll be talking about that. You can pass tons of bandwidth up there. You can do all kind of other stuff for $120 a side.
Like strainers.
30 miles range.
Strainers.
Tin can.
Yeah. Coffee cans.
Coffee cans, 3-pound Folgers cans. Yeah.
We've hit we're probably way past our time limit. So
how many, real quick, just because I'm, taking over. How many of you are doing RSS feeds from audio port as part of your automation? You are, and Dave, you are, ERP. Just stream, that's it? Okay.
Yeah.
You are too? Is it working?
We're right now playing with it, so we're not really.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't even know what the next session in here is.
It might be 10:45, I'm not sure.
It's you.